Hello, good evening. I'm Jerry McManus from the IIG, the Ignatian Identity Group. We're very happy to host this evening every year, and we thank you all very much for joining us this year. You're very welcome. If it could have been an in-person event, we would have had tea and coffee and biscuits for you. But I hope maybe you're sitting happily at home and have a couple with you there. And the plus is that if you'd been in the school hall, your chairs would probably have been a lot less comfortable. So I'd like you to drop your names into the live chat there if you're comfortable to do that. And my fellow members of the IIG who are online with us will do that just now. So it might give some feeling of sociability and might help to make up for the fact that we can't welcome you in person. So we in the IIG were a group of parents and past pupils, and we came together in 2002 in response to a request from the then Jesuit provincial who asked that the schools put resources in place to foster the Ignatian or Jesuit ethos in the schools because the Jesuit manpower was diminishing. So the IIG is committed to keeping the Jesuit ethos alive in Ignatian as an integral part of school life. We believe that this very particular tradition of caring for students in their journey to adulthood is of great value. The ethos in the school or in any organisation doesn't happen by accident. So we think it's important that the pupils and the parents know a bit about what makes up the Ignatian ethos. And that's why we welcome the new parents to this event every year. I myself knew nothing about Jesuits or Jesuit education until I encountered it here in the Jes. I knew this school had something special the minute I walked into it 25 years ago, and it was to do a building survey at that time that I came, nothing to do with the running of the school. My eldest child was only 4 then, but I made the decision after that visit that I'd like my children to go to secondary school in the Jes. I surveyed most of the schools in Galway at that time, and the Jes, Ignatian, stood out completely above them as the one where I felt most at home. The day I arrived to do the survey, it must have been break time when I arrived because there were loads of students milling around in the hall and it was overcrowded and chaotic. But there was a great sense of good humour and respect for everyone. So one of the students willingly interrupted their chatting and helped to find a teacher for me. And I felt very welcome and included in some way, even though I was an outsider and the reason for my being there was nothing to do with the students or wasn't relevant to them in any way. So then when the time came, I did my best to get my eldest child a place in the Jes. And at the last minute he did. He got it 2 days before the start of term. And I'm very grateful always to whoever it was that pulled out or changed their arrangements at the last minute so that he got in. And I have been so happy with the school over the many years when my children attended. My eldest entered in 2002, and my last has just left there in 2020. A long span of years, but no, I didn't have lots of children, 4, but they were widely spaced. 3 of them went to the Jes and they thrived here. The one who didn't, my most rebellious, now admits at the age of 28 that she would have loved it here, she thinks. But anyhow, she wouldn't listen to her mother at the time, and sure, she got on all right where she went. And indeed, I think that might have been partly because the Jesuit way of thinking and outlook, she got it a bit of, it influenced me and she got the benefit of that. My late introduction to Ignatian and Jesuit approach to life was of great help to me personally, and it helped me to have a much wider view of the world, and it had a great help. It was a great help to me in my relationship with my children through all the difficult teenage years, and indeed I think it helped them to cope with me. The Ignatian tradition, as I discovered, includes the best of mindfulness and meditation, and there's a wonderful added dimension. So my 3 children, with their very different personalities, were very happy here. Ignatian education recognizes each individual as different and cares for each one in particular. So we in the IIG want your children to receive that kind of education. And that's why I plan to remain in the group, along with the other past parents and present parents, working to ensure that the Ignatian ethos is maintained in the school. So we hope some of you might like to join us. So enough from me. I'd like to introduce you to Martin Boyster, who will host the next part of the meeting, or evening. It's not really a meeting. I invite you to write your comments or questions in the live chat, and we'll do our best to answer them as we progress through the evening. So over to you, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, and good evening, everybody. I would like to take a few minutes now to reflect with you on the question, why the jazz? As you know, there are other options in Galway when it comes to secondary schools, and very good options. So why did you choose to Coláiste Ignatian for your child? I am Martin Boyster, parent of 3 children who went through the school between 2000 and 2013, and I'm also a member of the IIG. And I was invited by the Jesuits to serve on the board in the school, currently as the chairperson. Our children's time in the school had a lasting impact on their lives, far beyond the academic learning. And it has had and continues to have a lasting impact on my life. For us, the jazz was a family deal. I met Jerry here when the IIG emerged, first from the cohort of parents who were then at the core of the school community at a time when the future of the school and its specific take on education came into sharp focus. This was in 2002, and more about that later from McDara. In other years, we would have welcomed you with a handshake in the foyer of the Griffin building, and we might have had a few minutes for a quick chat, a cup of tea, and to get to know a few of the new faces. We hope that that day may come sometime soon when the public health restrictions allow. For now, I have 2 quick questions for you. First question is, are you new to the jazz? Or did you have another child in the school before, or currently perhaps in the school? When our daughter, Kira, who is the eldest in the family, started the jazz, she didn't know any of her peers here, nor did we know any of our peers, of the parents in the school. She was new to the jazz, and so were we. It was a very exciting time, and I do recall the huge sense of anticipation, particularly on the first day when we walked through the gates of the school. If I'm not mistaken, there's quite a number of you here who also don't have a child in the school or hadn't one before. So this is new territory for you. To you, I would say, welcome to the club. Now, the second question that I have for you is, as I said, why the jazz? There are a number of reasons why parents would choose this school for their children. It might be simply convenient. The location might just be very good for you, around the corner, easy to reach on foot or on a bicycle. Or because of the sports that are offered here. You might have heard of hockey, rowing, basketball, other sports. Or because it's a Jesuit school. This is what some parents say, we like this school because it's a Jesuit school. Students don't have to wear a uniform. And that's unique in Galway, as you know. Others said students get a rounded education. Or they spoke of the religious ethos of the school as a very important factor to them. This is the social outreach program. And there are opportunities outside of the classroom. You might have heard of the school play that takes place, the orienteering or mountaineering club. There's also the debating society. So there are a number of other aspects which are part of the education for the children, but they do happen outside of the classroom. So all of these are important considerations for parents. So I would like to ask you perhaps now, if you were to pick the single most important reason for you to send your child here to the school, which of them would it be? Just take a moment to consider this. And if you like, you might take a quick note of it. Thank you. So we've put this question to other parents before, and typically the response is a mixed response. There is no single most important reason. Quite a number of parents speak of the rounded education that seems to be important to many of us, and perhaps it is important to many of you. This is indeed one of the hallmarks of Jesuit education, to allow the whole person to develop and flourish. Yes, it does include academic excellence, but it places an equally great value on each student's unique talents, and they can be very different. A talent for friendship, a talent for singing, for playing in a rock band, for drawing, for sculpting, for kicking a ball, whatever it might be that a person excels at can contribute to the community. And this contribution should be recognized and acknowledged. Then there is the uniforms or no uniforms. It might not be a big issue for most of you, but I wonder, is it for your children? Sports, yes, the Jazz has a name for excellence in this field, for rowing, for rugby, for hockey, for basketball. And there is social outreach. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this essential part to the transition year program. Sadly, I have to say, though, that this is very significantly curtailed at the moment due to the public health restrictions on interactions with vulnerable people. But still, we had the sleep out experience for students and for their parents to accompany the students. And then people say, because it's a Jesuit school. That's an interesting response. Something that we can unpack a bit this evening and perhaps also further in other conversations over the next 6 years on your journey through the school. Kira will speak to the Jesuit identity shortly. So while we think of the Jazz as something unique to Galway, which it is, the school stands very firmly on the best tradition of Jesuit education. And that goes very deep in history, but it goes also far beyond our continent. It goes far beyond Ireland, never mind Galway. So let me now introduce you to Kira Boyster. Kira awakened my curiosity in the Jesuit way of looking at the world. And she did so with the stories and the questions she brought home from school after she entered the Jazz. And if there is one thing that I have learned from her and our Jesuit education in the school, it is to listen at a deep level. And that includes to listen to our children. So let me now hand you over to Kira, and she will pick up the story from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here with you this evening. My name is Kira Boyster, and as Martin mentioned, I'm a past pupil of the Jazz. And my time at the Jes has had a profound impact, not only on the person that I've become, but also on the path my life has taken. I am now working for the International Network of Jesuit Schools for an organization called Educate Magis, which I'll say a little bit more about shortly. And I suppose through my experience in the school and through my job, I've learned a lot about Jesuit education and also about the global dimension of Jesuit education. So it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening as your child starts their journey in the Jes and to share a little bit of that with you. Now, I know it's a Tuesday evening, it's getting late, so I'll keep it brief, and I'm not going to give you a history lesson, not that I'm qualified to do so, but just to give you a really quick snapshot of the history of the Jesuits, I suppose. So Saint Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, founded the order together with a group of friends in 1540. And the original mission of the Jesuits was to provide the greatest service to those in greatest need. So, or they sometimes described it as to save souls. And they established various means of doing this. And very quickly, they began to realize that education was an excellent way to achieve this on a larger scale. And so 8 years later, they founded the first Jesuit school in Messina in Italy. And obviously, there are a huge amount of things that have happened in the meantime, but I don't want you to fall asleep. We don't have a whole lot of time. So let's just fast forward about 500 years to 2021 and see where we are now. So currently, there are 827 Jesuit schools spread out over 70 different countries around the world. Now, these statistics are updated every year, but they don't change a huge amount. And as far as we know, it's the largest and most diverse network of schools. And so the ethos of the school, the ethos of the Jes, comes from a long and rich history and an intellectual and spiritual depth, which is shared and enriched by so many other Jesuit schools around the world. And even though the Jesuit mission the mission of Jesuit education has grown and evolved a lot over the last 500 years, as you can imagine, the desire to provide the greatest service to those in greatest need still remains central to the mission of all Jesuit schools across the world. And that goes from Ireland to India, to Mexico, to Madagascar, to the States, to Cambodia, and so many other countries in between. So educating and advocating for social justice, as one famous Jesuit once phrased it, educating men and women for others, has and will always be central to the mission of Jesuit education. And it's funny, when you meet students from Jesuit schools in different countries around the world, you'll see that there's one sentiment they often share, and it's a feeling of belonging or a feeling of being cared for. So you'll often see past pupils of Jesuit schools kind of gravitating back towards the school long after they've left. That goes for the Jes in Galway, but also for other schools around the world. And I suppose another element which has always been a part of Jesuit education is the global dimension and the international perspective, which I'd just like to talk a little bit about. So in the beginning, as you can imagine, that looked very different to how it does today. They didn't have the luxury of technology like we do today, and they didn't have instant communication. So Jesuits would write letters about their experiences from different parts of the world and send them to each other. And often they'd have to send several copies because the first copy wouldn't arrive. But the basic concept was the same as it is today. So they shared their worldviews, their experiences, their learnings with each other, and always with a focus on social justice. So they thereby were continuously kind of enriching and deepening their educational offerings over time. And nowadays that obviously looks very different. We don't have to write letters anymore, but it is the same concept. And so there's a central office for Jesuit education, which is based in Rome, and of which Father Jose Mesa is currently the director, or his title is the Secretary for Jesuit Education. And Jose then has a team of educational delegates who are the representatives of each of the 6 Jesuit regions around the world. That's Europe, Africa, South Asia, Asia Pacific, North America, and Latin America. And each country also has their own Jesuit education delegate. And those delegates then coordinate amongst themselves. So the kind of mission of Jesuit education is continuously enriched by that sharing and that collaboration. And even though the schools are based in very different contexts around the world, they have a shared mission and they continue to work together, particularly now as there are fewer and fewer Jesuits in the actual schools. And so Educate Magis, the organization that I work for, is essentially the platform that connects these 827 schools around the world and provides a space for teachers to share their ideas, to share classroom materials, engage in projects together, and ultimately to build and strengthen a global community amongst these Jesuit schools. And our two main focuses are to support and strengthen the Jesuit mission of schools and also to promote global citizenship education. The platform is a project of the International Secretary, Father Jose Mesa, who I mentioned. And yeah, as parents, you're also very welcome to check out the platform. So you're welcome to browse it without registering or without logging in. That's for teachers, but you're very welcome to have a look. You'll see the map of Jesuit schools. You can show it to your children. It is very exciting. And so Jesuit education has very strong roots and a long and rich history. And the Jesuits continue to develop this education in order to respond to the changes in our society. So in 2019, for example, after a long period of consultation, prayer, listening, discernment, the Jesuits released 4 key areas that they'd like to focus on over the next 10 years, not only in the schools, but also in all of the other ministries and works that they have. So education is the main ministry of the Jesuits, but there are also others. And these 4 key areas are what they deem to be most important in today's context. And they are showing the way to God, and that's introducing people to practices of reflection, deep listening, discernment, then walking with the excluded, the most marginalized and vulnerable people in our society. So for example, you'll see a lot of Jesuit schools and organizations who work, for example, with migrants and refugees. Then the third one is journeying with the youth. So here they've specifically highlighted the need to listen to young people, to be guided by them, and to accompany young people in the creation of a hope-filled future. It's just pretty powerful. And then the 4th area is caring for our common home. So that's looking after our environment, finding ways to be more ecologically conscious and taking action for climate justice to work towards a more sustainable environment. And so these 4 areas, which are known as the universal apostolic preferences, are the focus for Jesuit works for the next 10 years. And I could obviously speak a lot more about these, but I think they're quite clear, and hopefully they give you a good sense as well of what the priorities are for Jesuits at the moment. And I think we can probably all agree these are 4 very important topics, and very much aligned with the original mission of providing the greatest service to those in greatest need. So as you can see, your child is starting a journey here in the Jes in Galway, but also as part of a global network of schools steeped in a very rich history. And I hope that, as it was for me and my family, this will be the start of a wonderful journey for you and your children. And I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Gurmagad Kira Agus G. Good evening, everybody. My name is Makdara Hosti. I am a member of the Ignatian Identity Group. I am also a past pupil in the school, and as of today, I am a parent in the Jes. Our son Killian started today, just like all of your children did. And I, like you, I'm incredibly excited about the journey ahead, and also a little nervous, if the truth be told. But nervous in a really positive way, and I look forward to sharing that journey with all of you over the next 6 years. This evening, though, my role is to explore the question with you of why does the Ignatian Identity Group exist? And hopefully through the exploration of that question, you learn a little bit about the Ignatian Identity Group, how we came into being, what we do and how we do it. So I've prepared some slides which I hope will help us through this exploration, and I'm going to share those slides now. So why does the Ignatian Identity Group exist? I think when faced with a question of this nature, it can be very helpful to go back to the origins. And the origins for the Ignatian Identity Group were in 2002, when Jerry O'Hanlon, the then provincial, wrote to all of the colleges in the country, just outlining some fears that he had and an insight that he wanted to share. And I guess that insight was to say that he felt that the day was in sight when some or all of the colleges will not have Jesuits working in them. I mean, that's an incredible statement to make, I guess. And I just wonder at the time, you know, how it impacted the parents and the teachers and all of the people connected to the colleges. But when I was reflecting on this particular statement, I started to think back to my own time in the Jes, which was between 1982 and 1989. I know in my mind, it seems like the blink of an eye, but it is quite a long time ago, I guess, in other ways. But in those 7 years in the Jes, I was fortunate enough to meet these 15 really, really wonderful people who had a magnificent impact on me and who really helped me to shine. You know, I can see now as I reflect on those 7 years, the massive positive impact they had on me. And I guess when I started to think about this, I then started to think about my own son, Killian, and I wondered how many Jesuits he would meet as he went through the school. And so I asked the question, how many Jesuits are there in Ireland today? And I was surprised to find that there are just 111. And I guess this led me to ask the question, how many Jesuits are there in Galway today? And you might be surprised to find that there are just 7. And I guess most startling of all, I asked the question, how many Jesuits are there actively working in Coláiste Ignatian today? And the answer is none. So we've come from a time when I was fortunate enough to be taught by 15 Jesuits over a 7-year period, to a time when my son probably won't ever be taught by a Jesuit as he goes through the school. So Jerry O'Hanlon was right. The day has come when there are no Jesuits in Coláiste Ignatian. So how did the parents respond to this challenge? And what happened was they organized a meeting, and the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the very real possibility that there would be no Jesuits in the school in the future, and also to explore the contribution that the parents could make in the face of this particular challenge. And the contribution that they decided on was to form the Parents' Ethos Group. And the Parents' Ethos Group met regularly to explore the Jesuit ethos and to explore how parents could contribute to preserving and to developing that ethos. The group organized presentations and lectures on Ignatius and on the Jesuit tradition of education for the parent body. It organized induction evenings for first-year parents, just like we're doing this evening. It initiated retreats for the parent body, and it drafted a document on the Jesuit identity of the school, which was very, very important at the time. After a short period of time, the Parents' Ethos Group became the Ignatian Identity Group, which is what we are today. And the Ignatian Identity Group met for the first time in October 2004. The group has the support of the Jesuits, and it also has the support of the School Board of Management. And at the outset, it was greatly helped in its formation by Terry Howard, who those of you who are concentrating properly will have noticed that Terry was one of the Jesuits who certainly had a very positive impact on me in my time in the school. And the group was also helped hugely by the late John Humphreys, who was very, very instructive and hugely supportive at the time that the group came into being. And the IIG is open to all members of the school community, including yourselves. And we meet, by the way, on the first Tuesday of every month, and you're more than welcome to come along if you wish. So in short then, in summary, the Ignatian Identity Group was formed to preserve, foster and develop the Ignatian identity of the Coláiste Ignáid community. So back to this question, why does the Ignatian Identity Group exist? And I think the answer lies in what we believe. We believe that the Ignatian way of life helps us to be fully alive and to be fully human, and it enables us to live a reflective life, and it encourages us to change the world for the better in exactly the same way that Ignatius did. And I think the answer also lies in our purpose as a group. And our purpose as a group is to is inspired by the presence of Christ and the characteristics of Jesuit education. We offer opportunities for the students, the parents and the staff of Coláiste Ignáid and its wider community to experience the rewards of living at a deeper level. And we do this because we believe in the importance of maintaining the Jesuit ethos in our school and in the wider community. And I guess it's that ethos that makes the school different, and maybe it's that difference that has brought us all together. And we do what we do because we believe the importance of maintaining that ethos. We also believe in the value of offering opportunities for the students, the parents and the staff of Coláiste Ignáid and its wider community to experience the rewards of living at a deeper level in the same way that Ignatius did. And we value hugely the friendships we have formed in the spirit of Ignatius and the growth that we enjoy in those friendships. So I hope that gives you a little insight into why the Ignatian Identity Group exists. And as I say, you're more than welcome to join us at any of our meetings. We meet on the first Tuesday of every month, and there'll also be activities and vision evenings and other events which we'll be organising, which you will be informed of through the school's communication system on Compass. But for now, Gormida Magi a Sochteisteachlum, and I'm going to hand you over to Una for the next section of the meeting. Thank you, and good evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Una Allen, and I am delighted to be here this evening. As we have just heard from Ciara's presentation, with the JES in Galway, you are entering a substantial global network this evening of best practice in education, which has deep roots in history and very deep roots across a wide diversity of cultures. But one thing all the students in Jesuit schools around the world have in common is that they are all introduced to reflection. And this is a very simple tool which Ignatius of Loyola discovered for himself, and he passed it on to his friends and other people that he came into contact with. And your children have already had their first experience of reflection. But this evening, we would like to give you a very small taster of something similar. So this evening, this next 10 minutes is for you. And all you need to do is to be open to listening. Probably most carefully to be listening to yourself, to what's going on inside of you. At the end of the reflection, we'll have 2.5 minutes of a piece of calming music, which hopefully will allow you to process a little what you have experienced and allow it to resonate with you. And it's a piece by Cyrilus Creek, who is an Estonian composer. So let us begin. Might like to find a comfortable position in your chair as we begin. It's a little bit more difficult to do this on virtually than it would be if we were together in a room, but we'll do the best that we can. So make yourself comfortable in your chair, straighten your back, put your feet, 2 feet on the ground, and if you wish to put your hands on your lap, and relax the muscles in your shoulders, in your neck, in your legs, and take a deep breath. Begin to notice your breathing. Notice your breathing as you breathe in and out. In and out. You might like to focus on a fixed point while we're doing this, or you might like to close your eyes, whichever you feel most comfortable with. So, as we begin, I would invite you to think back for a moment and note how you felt as we logged into the meeting this evening. You might have had to rush from your dinner to the laptop, or maybe you haven't even had any dinner. You might have come straight from a busy work day with a whole pile of stuff that is still left to do on your desk. Maybe you don't know anybody else at this meeting, parents who are at the same point of departure as you are today. Maybe you were hoping to meet parents again that you already know. Just take a moment and recall how you felt as you logged in. What was going on in your head? Now, I would like to invite you to take yourself back to this morning, when you got up to get ready for your daughter or son's first day in the JES. How were you feeling? Perhaps you were delighted that your children were actually able to attend school in person and hopefully will not have to experience remote learning. Maybe you were feeling a little anxious as to how your child would experience their first day in secondary school. School, new building, new teachers, new pupils. What was going on in your head? Maybe your child doesn't know anybody in his or her year, and they were feeling a little bit overwhelmed at the thought of this whole new beginning. Maybe there were arguments and shenanigans at the breakfast table as everybody was trying to get out to be on time. Take a moment. What was going on for you? And moving on through the day, I invite you to think back on your way to school this morning. Perhaps you shared a quiet moment with your child in the car. And if you did, can you remember it and remember how you felt? Your child was acting the maggot and there was a row. You caught the eyes of your child for a split second and there was that connection between the two of you that touched you. What did you feel? Then arriving at the school gate and your child walking off with great courage into this new experience, into this new life really. Or perhaps the courage was vanishing And there might have been an extra grip on your hand, or even a welling up of tears, welling up of your own tears, perhaps. Big day. What was going on in your head and in your heart? The noise in the atrium might have seemed enormous. You might have seen friendly faces there, but then all the arrows and should I go this way, should I go that way? Seeing friendly faces, older students coming down to show their younger charges the way around the school. Little groups building up in the foyer. Masks, masked students, masked teachers, masked parents. What was it like? What were you feeling? There might have been so many emotions going through you. Is this the moment that you had been preparing for so long? Maybe you felt proud of your child going off into this new adventure. Or maybe you were anxious, worrying about him or her, wondering how they would cope, how they would manage. Would they be able to fit in? Would they make friends? Perhaps you didn't find it easy to let him or her go. Maybe they didn't find it easy to go. Remember how you felt as you turned and left the school and made your way back to the car or your bike or walking back to the bus or walking home. What was going on in your head? Can you recall what you were doing at 9:40 a.m. when your child sat down listening to the principal's address and the welcome from the chaplaincy team? Or later on in the morning at 10:15 when your child was going off on a tour of the school, being brought around by one of the older mentors. You were absorbed in your work and the demands of the day, fully immersed in your own whole world again. But then, in a flash, maybe you're wondering how he's getting on, how she's getting on. Are they managing? Maybe somebody lit a candle for your child today. Or a brother or a sister or a neighbor, somebody had given them an encouraging wink or a nod, or it'll be okay. The Jez is a great school. You'll be very happy there. Then, when it was time to go back to the school to pick up your child again, did the morning fly by, or did it seem to go on forever? If you went back to collect your child, do you remember that moment when you saw him or her coming out of the school? Do you remember what he or she was doing? Was she with other people? Was he with old friends, new friends? Was he on his own? Was she on her own? What do you think your body language might have been telling your child? Do you think your child's body language was telling you? I think was more excited, more anxious, more courageous, more eager to talk, more able to listen. Think about it. How did the other family members respond when you came back home? The brothers and sisters, husband, wife, partner. Was the atmosphere. So this was day one at the Jez for your child. Day one, perhaps for you as a jazz parent. And here you are in the company of other parents, all starting this journey together. So let us honor this day with our presence to one another, with being present to our children. John O'Donoghue. Let us take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention.
So we've come to the end of our presentation, our welcome event for you. I hope that you enjoyed watching and listening as much as we enjoyed preparing. If there's anything indeed that you found interesting or surprising, please feel free to put some comments into the live chat room and we'll respond to them if you're watching the event live. If you happen to be watching a recording of this, then please feel free to put any comments you may have into the comment section. And indeed, please feel free to share it. If there's anything of value that you think friends, colleagues of yours might benefit from, might be interested in, then please feel free to share the link, particularly with other parents in the school. A lot of people worked very hard to make this event happen. So I'd like to thank Jerry, Jonathan, Coleman, Anne, Una, Martin, and Kira for all of their efforts and their engagement in preparing this evening. I mentioned earlier that we meet on the first Tuesday of every month, and by we I mean the Ignatian Identity Group, the IIG, and we'd be delighted to see some of you at those meetings if you would like to come along. The email address for the IIG has been shared earlier. I shared my own personal email address earlier, and feel free to get in touch at any stage. And even if it's just to ask a question about the IIG, all of us, any of us would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. And we would be more than happy to welcome you at any of our meetings, and indeed at any of the future events that will happen, which will be shared with you through the school's communication system on Compass. So, leis an méid sin ráite gur míl mágaí as ocht éisteachlinn, as ocht bheithlinn, agus táimid tnú go mór leis an turas iontoch atá rón in san sé bhliain atá amach rón. Gur míl mágaí agus slán go fóill.